Awesome. So we have two questions here for you today.
Yeah.
The first one is, if God is angry at my sin, how can I get God to not be angry with me?
One thing's for sure, you ain't going to do it by yourself, you know. And that's really the entire gospel message, right? That God is angry with us. And the only way that we can get God not angry with us, or in other words, to please him, is if we have somebody else who's willing to give their righteousness to us. And that someone is Jesus Christ. And so if we believe on him, he gives us his righteousness. He covers us with his righteousness, so that even though we've sinned to God, you know, our transgressions are as far from each other as it is from the east is to the west. So yeah.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. The second one is, how can I be sure that God's actions in the Bible, like his miracles, were true?
The actions in the Bibles, wow. We could go into like a whole list of we could go into like a whole thing of, biblical accuracy, but I want to just focus on one event in the Bible, and that event is the resurrection, right? Because for me, I come from a science background, right? And when I'm considering, what events are the most convincing for me, and that's the resurrection, and here's why. Okay, the Jewish leaders of his time, of Jesus' time, right, his biggest enemies, they couldn't find his body. The mighty Roman government, they couldn't find his body, right? His disciples certainly could not produce the body, right? Nobody knows where Jesus' body is, right? And then something happened to the disciples that turned guys like Peter from like this shivering kind of, he's just like a shivering jello one day, to this mighty lion of a preacher defending the gospel. Literally overnight, right? And and another one is Saint Paul, who he encounters Jesus, the risen Jesus. This guy was killing people. These are historical characters, by the way. Their existence cannot be denied, right? There are records, like the Bible itself says. Check out the witnesses. There are people alive at the time of the writing who saw Jesus alive, who saw Saint Paul, like Saul's transformation to Paul the apostle, right? So for me, the resurrection is the one thing that convinces me, wow, if the resurrection happened as I know it did, then everything else in the Bible must be true, right? Because Jesus claimed that the Old Testament was true. Jesus claimed that he was God, and so on and so forth. And he claimed that he would, he made the most outrageous claim that on the third day he would rise again. And when he did, it kind of follows, right? It's a process of induction, yeah.
And one thing I'd like to add maybe to that as well is, I too, from a scientific background, science likes to say it can prove everything. Whether it's in science or whether it's in Christianity and faith, there's always this aspect that you have to have faith in it as well. Yeah. We can go back in records and there's details of this too, but at some point, and this is the big part of Christianity, is you have to take that step of faith. Some things might not be according to this world scientifically provable, but that's the grace and that's the mercy. That's the remarkable thing about it, is that we have that relationship and that faith in God for this. To us, we can just look around and see everything that's been created by him, and that's proof enough that he exists.
And one thing I will say, right, like, you can have all the proof that you want, but if you're resistant, that proof won't do anything for you. It won't become true in you, right? So I could give you all the proof in the world that God exists, that Jesus exists, right? But you have to believe it, right? Yeah, I may have messed that up, but you have to believe it. You do have to internalize it, right? There are some, we know that the earth is round, and or a sphere, and there are still some people who believe that it's flat, right? You can offer them all the proof in the world, but they won't be convinced. And in the same way, God is the ultimate thing, right? That ultimate concept. So yeah, that's all I have to say.